I was at a mall one time, and I was walking by a store that sells clothing to young children. And there were a few toys in there. And there was an altercation going on. There was an argument going on between a mother and a child. The child was in their twos, probably close to 3 years old. And it was a loud argument and getting louder. And people in the store had stopped shopping because they were watching this argument unfold. In fact, it was so loud that people outside of the store, including myself, had stopped because we wanted to see what was going to happen. It was becoming quite a spectacle. We've seen things like this before, of course, as parents, grocery stores, etc. So apparently the issue was that the young child wanted a toy. It was some sort of Disney toy, some character, I can't remember what it was. The mother instead did not want to buy the toy, wanted to leave the store. Classic argument. But the kid would have nothing to do with this. The argument grew more and more heated as the mother was more demanding. She grabbed the child's wrist. The child fell on the floor, just screaming. And it was just like amazing. How is this going to end? Here's how it ended. Surprisingly, the mother came up with an idea. She told the child that the Disney character that the toy was about was actually waiting for them in the parking lot by their car. Now, when she said this, people in the store, they looked at each other like, did I just hear what I thought I heard? Unbelievable. The child did calm down after this reality was brought forth, non-reality, and they left the store. And I said to myself, wow, you have just taught your kid how to lie. So what did that mother really teach their child in that moment? Basically this concept. If you can't get what you want, then you can just lie about it and see if that works. Lying is okay. As a matter of fact, your mom will do it. I can only imagine the explosion that must have occurred in the parking lot when the child realized that they had been tricked. You would think as parents that here's a child that will grow up to understand that this is the way you go about doing business. Can't get what you want, you lie to your parents too, because kids absorb everything. So obviously, we're not likely to do something like this. This is a really over-the-top story. But at the same time, I'm sure that most of us can think of times when we have seen similar situations unfold with parents and kids in some sort of public environment, a sports event, grocery store, toy store again, whatever. So maybe it's not that over the top. But even though we might not do something like this as parents, even though this might be obvious to us not to go to this direction, we're human beings. And let's face it, as human beings, we bend the truth a little bit from time to time. We tell white lies. And when we're doing this and we're single, without a family, it may be a coping mechanism to deal with something that's awkward or something you don't want to talk about or something like that. But when you have a family, everything changes. I'll give an example. Say you have a family, 2 partners, 2 kids, 5 and 6 years old. You're eating dinner. You say to your partner, we're having an office party on Saturday night. I told my boss we're going out of town. Sorry, we can't make it. Your partner says, wait, we're going out of town? I didn't know that. What are we doing this weekend? And then you say, well, we're not really going out of town, but I just said that because I really don't want to go to this office party. These office parties are really, really lame. Well, those kids that are sitting there, they might be just focusing on pushing their peas around their plate at the moment. But you know what? They're hearing you. As a matter of fact, as parents, we know, I think, that when you have children, it's like the walls have ears. How many times have you heard your kids come to you and tell you something that you said to them or said in context or said to your partner and you had no idea they were even listening? They were playing on the floor somewhere. They were watching TV, but they got it. So they hear these kind of things. And what do we do about this? Well, it's tough, and I'll tell you what I did. I realized that this was not acceptable behavior when you have children. If you're doing white lying, you're on the spectrum of the lie, and you have to stop. How do you stop? self-discipline, self-monitoring. I'm listening to myself. If I'm about ready to tell something that I sense is an untruth to my wife or partner, to a friend, to somebody on the telephone, I put the brakes on. I stop myself. I don't let it come out of my mouth. Now, that's a hard thing to do. It takes self-awareness to do this, but it's important, and I recommend that you put the brakes on, that you monitor yourself. You listen to what you are saying, and you try to really stop letting anything come out that could be construed as being untruthful or being a small lie. Now, there's other stuff that we can do as well. And one thing that you'll find is that there will be opportunities that come your way in raising your kids in which you'll be tempted to lie. You'll be in a situation where somebody else is doing an untruth. Those things can be kind of golden because you can use them as sort of moral lessons. So if something comes up, you're maybe with a neighbor or a sports event of some sort, you're with friends, you're with family, and somebody's engaging in some untruthful activity, store it away. It's something you can bring back, and maybe at the dining room table or maybe sitting on a child's bed at night, you can bring up that story. You can say, you know what? We were over at this family gathering today, and so said that they were doing this, and that wasn't true. And you could turn it into a little bit of a moral lesson. You could say, well, I wouldn't have done it that way. Teach your children that they can take a certain pride in telling the truth. Let them know that telling the truth is actually more challenging than bending the truth, than coming up with a lie, than saying that my dog ate my homework, basically. You can encourage a family culture of pride in truth, in honesty. Hold it up as a value. Talk about it occasionally. If something comes up like this story with the family, store it away. Bring it back out into the open. Talk about it. Make it into a little bit of a teachable moment, so to speak. The other thing you can do, and something I did with my kids, which really works well, kids love stories about their parents when the parents are young. One of the reasons is there's a relatability there. So if you tell a story about something that happened to you when you were 8 or 9 years old and your kids are that age, they're going to be particularly interested in that because it has relevancy to them. So one thing I did was I looked for stories when I was young in which something happened that related to honesty. Maybe something I did, maybe something a friend did to me or a family member. And I bring that out as an example of what to do or maybe what not to do, depending on what the story is. If we look in ourselves and you think about it, you'll probably be able to find a couple of these. It might take you a little while to bring them back up, might come up right away, but if you think about it, we can usually find these sorts of stories from when we were growing up. And what I like to do is I just like to put it out there. It's easy. Maybe you're driving the car, maybe you're at the dinner table, whatever. You could say, hey guys, I was thinking about something the other day I wanted to tell you. It was something that happened to me when I was 9 years old. And you know what? Their ears will kind of prick up usually because they want to hear a story about their parents at 9 years old. And you can lay out this story about something, as I say, something that relates to this topic of honesty. Make it into a moral lesson. Here's what I did to respond to that. Or here's the way it made me feel when I was lied to. Or something like this. Kids get this. They store it away. And you might be surprised they'll be able to tell you the exact story you told them 10 years down the road. So just to sum up, what are we talking about here? Well, we're obviously talking about not teaching our kids to lie. One thing that we can do is self-monitor, catch ourselves. Another thing we can do is to maintain a highly truthful, honesty-oriented environment in our homes. We can also bring in stories about events that happen to us as a family. And finally, we can bring up stories of things that happened to us that relate to telling the truth when we were kids. We can tell those to our children. So these are some of the best techniques that we came up with in raising our kids, and they were very, very helpful. So I hope they're useful in your family.